Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking one of the most wild and fascinating paradoxes we're facing right now. We live in this world where generative AI is suddenly churning out essays, beautiful poems, breathtaking art, complex code, and even full-blown business strategies that just feel entirely human. And it forces us to confront this deeply philosophical mystery. When a machine writes a gorgeous poem or generates a stunning image, is it actually being creative? Or are we just looking at a really advanced simulation of human ingenuity?
It really all boils down to this one fundamental question. Can machines truly be creative? We're going to explore that fine line between genuine creation and just algorithmic combination. Because, if creativity is defined only by what we can literally see on the canvas or read on the page, well, AI might already be there. But if true creativity requires a soul, consciousness, or some kind of lived emotional experience, then we might be looking at this whole thing completely wrong.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the AI creativity paradox. How do we define creativity? The case for AI, the missing human element, and finally, the co-creation era.
Starting with Part 1, the AI creativity paradox and replicating human artifacts.
Moving into Part 2, how do we define creativity? Setting the rules. For the longest time, we basically just assumed that creativity was this untouchable, exclusively human superpower, completely rooted in consciousness and emotion. But modern generative models are just completely shattering that assumption by replicating human artifacts with, frankly, staggering accuracy. So before we can even judge whether a machine is creative, we actually have to agree on what that word means. Philosopher Margaret Bowden has this foundational framework. She argues that for an idea to be creative, it has to hit three specific marks. First, novelty. It's got to be new. But new isn't enough, right? A random string of gibberish is technically new, but it's not creative. Second, surprise. It needs to disrupt our expectations or show us unexpected possibilities. And third, value. It has to have some aesthetic, practical, or intellectual worth. A super obvious idea might be valuable, but if it lacks novelty and surprise, it's not creative. And the crazy thing, AI systems are remarkably good at checking these three observable boxes.
Researchers Colton and Wiggins push this even further with a concept called computational creativity. And notice how this kind of shifts the goalposts. They moved the debate away from asking, does a machine have a human-like mind, to just evaluating the machine's actual behavior. The idea is, if an AI generates something and an unbiased human looks at it and goes, wow, that's creative, then under this definition, the system is exhibiting creative behavior. It's an entirely external behavioral way of measuring success.
Section 3, the case for AI. Behavioral and functional creativity.
If we look at how AI actually performs out in the real world, the data makes a seriously compelling case. Just think about this number for a second, 25%. In a 2024 study by researchers Zhou and Li, they analyzed over 4 million AI-assisted artworks. And they found that when humans use text-to-image AI, the creative productivity shot up by a massive 25%. That is a game-changing functional enhancement to human output. But let's look a little closer at that same study, because there is a wildly fascinating trade-off happening here. So productivity jumped by 25%, and the peer-evaluated value of the art, basically how much people liked it, jumped by 50%. But there's a catch with that third metric. The average visual novelty and diversity actually declined. So AI makes us faster, and it helps us make stuff people really value, but it's subtly pushing us toward this middle ground of stylistic convergence. And a 2025 systematic meta-analysis by Holzner, Meyer, and Feuerriegel confirmed this exact same trend across the board. AI-assisted humans absolutely outperform humans working alone, no question. But when we collaborate with generative AI, the overall diversity of our ideas shrinks. AI acts as this incredible partner that raises the baseline of our capabilities. But because these models are trained on the dominant patterns in existing data, they inherently tend to reproduce sameness, which inadvertently homogenizes our creative output.
Which brings us to Section 4, the missing human element, phenomenological creativity.
Let's completely flip the script for a minute and look at the deep, philosophical side of what is literally absent inside artificial intelligence. The absolute crucial distinction here is between creative output and creative subjectivity. On one side, we have creative output, and AI is phenomenal at this. It uses probabilistic patterning and statistical generation to make observable artifacts. But human creativity, that's driven by creative subjectivity. Think about a grieving person writing a poem. They aren't just arranging words, they are actively trying to process a lived experience, raw emotion, and existential struggle. An AI can imitate the linguistic patterns of grief flawlessly, sure,
But the AI itself does not grieve. It has zero inner life. No frustration, no longing, no sudden sparks of personal insight.
The philosopher John Searle pretty much nailed this limitation with his famous Chinese room argument. He pointed out that syntactic manipulation of symbols does not amount to semantic understanding. So imagine a machine that spits out this heart-wrenching poem about the beauty of a sunset and the reality of death. The machine manipulated the symbols, the syntax, perfectly, but it doesn't actually understand what a sunset looks like or the heavy finality of death. It has absolutely no semantic understanding of the beautiful thing it just created.
What Searle is pointing to here is a concept called intentionality. In the philosophy of mind, this is the aboutness of our mental states. When you or I paint or write or design something, our thoughts are directed toward a purpose. A novelist writes to critique society or maybe just to express joy. Human creativity is intentionally directed. Generative AI completely lacks that first-person perspective. It generates outputs based on learned mathematical correlations, not conscious aims or deeply held human purposes.
Section 5. The Co-Creation Era. Reorganizing Creative Agency.
So if AI can create these incredible outputs but totally lacks human subjectivity, where does that actually leave us? Well, this breakdown maps it out perfectly. If we look at the dimensions of creativity, can AI satisfy novelty and surprise? Yes, absolutely. Can it satisfy value and evaluation? Partially. It can rank things based on data for sure, but true cultural or emotional value? That's still assigned by us, by human communities. But then look at intentionality. Can AI satisfy that? No way. AI succeeds brilliantly on the external checklist of creativity, but it completely fails on the internal, conscious criteria. And because of that reality, we are currently living through a massive reorganization of human agency. We're experiencing this huge creative shift. Creativity is moving from making to selecting. It's moving from direct authorship to orchestration. You aren't being replaced, your role is just evolving. Instead of wrestling with raw materials on a blank canvas, human creators are stepping into the role of curators. We're prompting machines to generate this massive field of possibilities, and then we're using our human judgment to select and refine the stuff that actually holds real meaning.
Which brings us right to the hybrid future. Honestly, AI is best understood as a co-creative technology. In this new distributed model, AI expands our possibilities and totally accelerates ideation. It gets us past that terrifying blank page in seconds. But we, the humans, have to provide the purpose, the ethical boundaries, and the context. Creativity just isn't a solitary act anymore. It's a shared, distributed dance between human intention and technological power. And because AI literally cannot care about the outcomes, human judgment remains absolutely irreplaceable. AI can effortlessly generate 1,000 ideas, but only a human can decide which of those ideas actually matters.
So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. The question isn't really, is AI actually creative anymore? The real question is, in an increasingly automated world where machines can generate endless, beautiful, and surprising things at the push of a button, what kind of creativity do we want to cultivate? Because if creativity is just about speed and novelty, the machines are going to win. But if creativity is about wisdom, struggle, and shared human meaning, then our role as creators has literally never been more vital. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new framework for looking at the art and the ideas of the future.